Welcome back, everybody. It is Tuesday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Steele Roden and Big Flip Livingstone. On today's episode, it is time for a serious look into the top 5 Stanley Cup contenders, along with, of course, updated odds to win the Stanley Cup. We are making some serious futures bets on today's episode, along with the usual, my friends, for Tuesday's 13-game loaded DFS and big-time betting board. We have our locks ready to roll, and it's time to stack this money.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Party people, hockey heads, degenerate gamblers, unite and stand up. This is your show. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Steele Roden and Big Flip Livingstone. And we are usually fired up for today's show, but I am extra fired up because we are taking a look at some future bets, sprinkling some money, breaking down our top 5 picks to win the Stanley Cup. We're kicking it off with the 5th and 4th selections on today's episode. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. We'll be dropping 3 through 1 of the top contenders and odds for the Cup this year. Playoffs are coming, and we are getting very serious around here, including a breakdown of tonight's 13-game loaded DFS and big-time betting board steal. I have some picks. I know you're ready for a big week. Not many opportunities for regular season money. I say it every episode. We're building that bankroll for a big springtime. Lots of content coming up. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day, guys. Stay tuned for big-time bets coming up. Let's get right into it, Steele. Top 5 Cup threats, along with updated odds. I have a 5 that I think is probably different than yours. Actually, I'm sure it is. But why don't we start off with that 5th number, my friend? Who do you have as your 5th contender for this year's Lord Stanley?
Yeah, well, I'm being a little bit cheeky here with my 5th selection because I have 2 teams, but it's because they're most likely playing each other in the first round, and it's the Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues matchup. I just can't leave either of those teams out because both of these teams, to me, are very deserving of a Stanley Cup this year. I think they're both ready, especially, both these teams, Wild trying to get their first Stanley Cup, the St. Louis Blues looking for another Stanley Cup in just as many years when back in 2019 when they won. So I think both these teams are ready right now. They made the right moves at the deadline, especially the Minnesota Wild, fixing their bottom 6 forwards and getting Marc-Andre Fleury to help Cam Talbot in the crease. Mm-hmm. To me, I couldn't leave either of those teams out. So I think those teams to me are in my 5th selection, and that they have the 8th and 9th best odds for to win the Stanley Cup this year. So you're going to get a good price as well.
100% good price, undeniably true. And I was taking a look at this list, of course, odds and path to the cup. Of course, yeah, we want to get your values worth, but realistically, betting on certain teams, like I was talking to you off air, is there real value in the Toronto Maple Leafs going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning? Sure, they could pull off the win again the first round, but really, is it worth it? I think you stay away from those kinds of situations. Look, I have the Wild and Blues as a slash in my 5th spot as well. It's a caveat. I'm copping out. They're taking my 5th spot together. Wild at plus 1,600, Blues at plus 2,000. These two teams are going through each other, Steele. That's a fact now. We know that. It just depends on who's getting home ice at this point. Taking a look at those standings, it's a coin flip on that, but I really do think that could be the edge, knowing how good Minnesota is. If they get an extra game at home, that has 7 games written all over it. But hey, after that first round, whoever comes out of that first round, whether it is Minnesota or St. Louis, I would say the sky's the limit after that, because we know those two teams, like you said, Minnesota rebuilt, St. Louis already has the makeup to make a cup run. So I would say whoever really comes out of that round, Steele, that's where you find that value in the odd. But after that, before that, it's really tough. So maybe sprinkle a little on both, maybe a little 25 piece on both for fun. I don't know.
I think you might have to. And I think with how the odds are lining up right now, you really do have to sprinkle some money on both of those teams, because whatever team comes out of that first round, they can match up well against any team in the NHL.
Yeah.
Even the top teams, Colorado, Florida, Tampa, Carolina, it doesn't matter who they're playing. They all match up really, really well against those teams. And even though that they're, the second and third in their division, they're a real cup contending team, both those teams.
Yep, 100%, 100%. And I think also what's really enticing about this time of year, Steele, is those teams are in the playoffs. So you're getting those, like, you know what I mean? Their ticket is punched. So as much as there is, odds stacked against both teams, your bet is live, baby. And for $25, you can't deny the value on either of those. I also see some value with my number 4 selection, and something tells me it might be yours too now that I'm just thinking it, looking at my notes. But the New York Rangers at plus 1,600, when you have a goalie having the season Igor Shesterkin is having, a Vezina season, I think you'd be absolutely remiss to not look at a team like that for a futures on a Stanley Cup winner because, man, again, after the first round, it's all on from then, and that odd is going to drop significantly after that. So at 1,600, Steele, and I'm not even going to say too much because I already know you have some Rangers info to go over there. I would say definitely have a look at those blue shirts because that's a juicy odd. In my opinion, that's far too high.
Yeah, that's exactly who I have for my 4th selection as well. The seventh best favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year at plus 1,600. They're finally back in the playoffs after missing it for the last 4 years. And like the Minnesota Wild, I think they did a fantastic job at the deadline getting great ads on the lineup. Andrew Kopp, I believe, just had a hat trick the other night.
Wow.
They're getting some tremendous scoring from their top lines. Even more now are Artemi Panarin, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, a little bit of depth scoring from Alexis Lafreniere recently.
Yeah, true.
This has been one of my favorite teams over the last couple of years, and to finally see them get back into the playoffs, have a real shot, and just dominate these teams in the regular season. Hopefully, they're going up against Pittsburgh in the first round because I would love to see that matchup as well. I think at plus 1,600, again, that's another team that brings some great odds, some great value, and I can really see them having a chance at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Most definitely, Steele. And I think one point that I wanted to make about the New York Rangers, and I know you and I have probably said too much about this team over the course of the reboot of this show. Shout out to episode number 63. We'll check the math on that later. But to have an asset like Alexis Lafreniere being able to play on the third line or insert up the lineup, Steele, I think that's one point that a lot of people have overlooked because maybe his development hasn't come along as we expected, right? That World Junior tournament when he played for Canada, he looked like he was a man amongst boys. Like he was torching stuff. So when he came into the league, I think the expectations were high. Anyway, the other thing with this Rangers team that impresses me, and I think people are sleeping on a little bit, is how good their top 4 blue liners have been. Ryan Lindgren, Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, Jakob Trouba. That's a solid 4. And I think really you ride a hot hand like Shesterkin, baby, and that plus 1,600 odd is going to start dropping real quick. Also, it passes the eye test, doesn't it? Because they have looked deadly over the past couple of weeks at time. They had that shutout streak as well. Lots to be excited about. Lots more coming up on today's episode, people. Tuesdays, 13-game big-time betting and DFS target board. We are diving deep into that. We have targets. We have picks, locks of the night. Also, make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's episode where we will drop our top 3 Stanley Cup contenders. Hopefully, Steele and I have a couple of different picks. I'm pretty sure we do. The odds will be continuing to drop. Stay tuned for that. But for today's episode, I need to tell you about HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients to your door, including farm-fresh produce that arrives within a week. You get the convenience without skimping on the quality. Skip the next trip to the grocery store and avoid those long waits and lines. Plus, ensure you don't waste any money on excess food. Customize your favorite dishes with their new Hello Custom offerings by swapping out one protein for another, or upgrade for a more luxurious experience, or add a protein to a veggie meal. That means more choices, more variety, and more meals tailored truly to you. That means delicious food. Go to HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Make sure for your next listen, you check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. I know Flip and I don't. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast, just like this podcast right here. So if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It means the world to us. Like Flip said, 13 games on the schedule for Tuesday night. One of the biggest nights in the final week of the regular season. A lot of matchups out there, a lot of good players to choose from. For me, this one is very straightforward, very obvious. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Lightning against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They've been absolutely incredible the last 2 weeks. 5-1-0 in their last 6 games, and they've outscored their opponents 36-19. 2 of those games against the Atlantic Division rivals in Florida and Toronto, where they absolutely dummied them 8-1 and 8-4. But just looking at the stats, Flip, in the last 6 games for their top guys. Stamkos, he's on a 6-game point streak, 17 points in that time span. Kucherov, 6-game point streak, 16 points for himself. And Victor Hedman, he's got a 5-game point streak with 13 points in those 5 games. So their top dogs right now are absolutely obliterating their opponents, but it's the depth scoring as well they're getting from the third line. Nick Paul, Ross Colton, they've been absolutely great as well. So I'm definitely targeting those top guys, but if I can, I'm definitely going to target some of those depth players they have to fill up some of my roster spots.
My friend, great minds think alike, and sometimes when you and I are so simpatico, if you will, with these picks, with these predictions, it goes well for us. Top of the page from me, my friend, Tampa Bay, and they're going to be in my top 3 for the Stanley Cup odds. Obviously, they're back-to-back reigning Cup champs. We're going to talk about them tomorrow some more, but for Tuesday, also lining up great against the Columbus Blue Jackets. These Tampa Bay Lightning are no joke right now and are definitely taking notice. If I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, man, I am all kinds of nervous about this matchup. It has bad news written all over it for them come the first round. If this Tampa Bay team continues to play this good, they are firing on all cylinders right now. Solid goaltending, check. Top 6, check. Chipping in from the bottom 6, triple check. Nick Paul looking like a steal of a deadline addition. Again, Tampa Bay does it. And oh my goodness, Victor Hedman. How about the top 3 seasons this year from D-Men, Cale Makar, Roman Josi, and I'm throwing Hedman in there too probably. Really impressive years from these guys. And Hedman right now, you said it, 13 points over his last 5 games. I think right now, Steele, literally, you could, if possible, load your whole lineup up with Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Try and get Vasilevsky as well because this has shutout situation written all over it. Columbus is poo. Tampa Bay has a good recent track record as well against Columbus. Just throwing that out there. Stay tuned for big-time bets. But I'm loving where you're going first because I think this is a night where we got to make some money because, 5 games, 5 nights left here? So let's get this money.
Yeah, only five nights left. Also, on top of that, the Columbus Blue Jackets have lost 4 of their last 5 games, so they're not doing great. Patrick Laine's out of the lineup, so not really a lot boding well for the Columbus Blue Jackets. The second matchup I'm actually looking at is 2 different ones, but I haven't chose really which one I want to target. Either looking at the Minnesota Wild against the Arizona Coyotes or the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Detroit Red Wings. My reasons for those are pretty simple. The Minnesota Wild are just red hot right now. They've won 5 in a row, I believe. Fiala and Kaprizov, again, are just insanely good. I repeat myself every episode, but they just do something every single night for the Wild, and it's impossible not to talk about them. So Minnesota's red hot right now. They've got some red hot forwards. And then the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs and Detroit Red Wings met, it was a 10-7, absolutely crooked second period or third period. And on top of that, Matthews is looking for his 59th and 60th goal of the season. So I'm hoping that against the Red Wings team where they're without Dylan Larkin right now, one of their best players. I'm looking at either of those matchups for DFS.
Yeah, I would probably lean Mini only because I know Matthews is looking for those numbers, but Nedeljkovic has somehow been decent over the last couple of weeks. I believe he has a shutout or 2 in that mix. And I know that 10-7, that's, me, I go back to the trends, but something tells me Detroit might come out and play decent after that embarrassing performance last time. But how many times have I said that and they come out and lay the absolute worst eggs you've ever seen? So in my opinion, I would lean mini, because also you said it, Steele. There is some balanced scoring happening in Minnesota. You could even look down to that third line and get Joel Eriksson Ek for probably a good price, Matt Boldy for a pretty decent price, or even some decent options on the blue line in Spurgeon, maybe even cheaper in Goligoski, who can chip in with a couple apples here and there. So I like what we're doing here, pal, because honestly, I was so gassed up about this spot for Tampa Bay, seeing how well they've played. I've watched, obviously, with them playing the Leafs recently, but I watched their other game the other night against Nashville. They're looking good, man, right at the top time of year. So I love what we're doing here with DFS, and I think it's time to stack a bit of loot here for the playoffs.
Yeah, hey, this is the time right now to really hammer down on some of these last minute games in the final week of the season and make some money, especially for some of those playoff bets that Flip and I are going to be releasing very, very soon. But before we get to big time bets, I know you've got a couple of interesting picks. Myself as well. I got to let everyone know about Rock Auto. With the increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now almost impossible for local chain auto parts stores to have what you need in stock. There's so many intimidating questions. I know myself, I'm not a car guy. I get confused very, very easily when it comes to what I need and what I the brand of what I need. And Rock Auto just makes it very, very simple. You'll be able to save time and save money when using rockauto.com, and you can use it from your phone or your laptop at your house. And why would you choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more from a local chain auto parts store or a dealership when you can save money from rockauto.com? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $350 from a dealership, or it's $215 from Rock Auto. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts they have for your car or truck. And when you go there, write Locked On in there, "How did you hear about us?" box, so they know that we sent you there. They have amazing selections, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need from rockauto.com. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, which also includes YouTube. So if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. Flip, 13 games on the schedule, a lot of games to choose from big-time bets. I know myself, I'm definitely going to be laying at least 7 or 8 different bets out there.
Whoa, let's
Tuesday
go.
night. I got to make some of that money back for the playoff time. I'll throw it over to you first. What is your first pick of the night in this 13-game board?
I'm not going bold enough to do a triple dip on the same game for a board this big, but I am bold enough to do a couple of double dips here, Steele. And I'm going to start with what I think is potentially, it's one of those games on this board to me that it stood out right away as like that playoff game. Vegas Golden Knights at the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars hold a 3-point edge on those Golden Knights that you called would fall out of it, and they've fallen right out of it. They are up 3 points. This feels like one of those spots that Dallas is just going to put away the Vegas Golden Knights. I love this spot for the Dallas Stars at home. And I also love this spot for being a low-scoring game. We know both of these teams have had their struggles scoring goals. We know Vegas especially has had their struggles with injuries, and they still have some key ones to guys like Riley Smith and others, so they're still dealing with that. Mark Stone has been back, but has not been good. He's clearly feeling those effects of being away from the rink for as long as he was. That's clear. He is a great player, but I don't think there's enough time for him to really round into form. Actually, I know for a fact there's not. I also like the under in this spot, Steele. The total has gone under the number in 6 of the last 6 trips Vegas has taken to Dallas. I like that number to keep rolling. I could see this just staying right under the number 2-1-3-2. I hope I don't get burned with an empty netter. I might up it to 6.5 for a lesser odd. But my first double dip of the night, the Dallas Stars on the money line, and give me the under in a playoff type game that I think Dallas puts them away to clinch their playoff spot, basically.
I like those picks a lot. I might have to include that. I might have 10
Numbers up
bets
to
for
10.
Tuesday night now.
10
It's
bets.
up to 10 now. But I'm going back right to the well. The Minnesota Wild against the Arizona Coyotes. I'm taking the Wild on the puck line, clearly, obviously, for like obvious reasons on a 5-game win
they're
streak.
minus 550 on the money line.
Yeah, so just taking the Wild on the puck line. I'm also going anytime Fiala goal.
Nice.
I might actually choose him for the first goal of the game. But as of right now, it's just anytime goal for Kevin Fiala. The guy's just red hot, Flip. Like every single time I picked him to get a goal, he's got it. I picked him to get an assist, he's got it. So he's been red hot. I'm just going to keep going back to him until he lets me down.
And he did score the first goal of the game, I believe, like at least 2 or 3 times this year, maybe more.
I think he's done it in the last 2 games. Actually,
no, he has for sure. He has. That's why I think there's something to be said there. Also, you know me, I'm a huge degenerate. I love betting on the first goal of the game in any situation. By the way, Austin Matthews has a few of those as well. Anyway, we don't need to go down there, but I love it. Hey, Kevin Fiala is I think we said he's in a contract year. That man's about to get paid. Yeah. Minnesota is going to be in for a tricky offseason if they have a good playoffs with some of these forwards, because I don't know how much money there is to go around in mini, but I can tell you there's not that much, especially if they're keeping Flower.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to, to go over some things in the offseason especially if they are able to get Fleury for another season as well. Re-signing Fiala, there's a couple of guys that they're going to have to look at and maybe make some moves, but we'll get to that down the line. We'll get to that down the line. What is your third and final pick?
Third, and actually, I'm going with a fourth pick tonight, Steele. I'm ramming the board full, and my lock and my third pick come from the same game, and I talked them up, man, for good reason. The Tampa Bay Lightning are a force to be reckoned with right now, and for those odds for the Cup, I'm jumping back on them, and hey, I get it. They are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, and anything can happen, but in my opinion, they should be the favorite in that series, and even a heavy favorite, because the way that the Toronto Maple Leafs have played over the course of the year, I know the last couple of weeks they've looked really good, but man, does this not feel good for me coming into that playoff series. The Tampa Bay Lightning are looking great. They've looked great over the last 3 games. Look, the Columbus Blue Jackets are just downright bad. They are 2-8 in their last 10 games on the road. They are a bad road team. They are 1-4 in their last 5 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and overall, Tampa has won 8 of 10 against Columbus. I think Tampa continues to roll into form here, continues to send that message to a Toronto team that better be prepared. Tampa Bay on the puck line, minus 140, I think is a very generous odds still. And also, so that's my lock of the night, and I'm going back to the well with a D-man prop bet. Victor Hedman is just getting too many points, and because he is a D-man, you're still getting some decent odds here. Give me a Victor Hedman anytime assist. He has 12 of them over his last 5 games, so the odd might not be great, but man, against the Columbus Blue Jackets, I can almost guarantee that man's getting a point or two. I'm not going to cop out completely and go just point, anytime point, because the odd value just won't be there. So give me a Hedman anytime assist, and give me the Lightning on the puck line to continue to roll. And that is my lock of the night, Steele.
That is also my lock of the night as well. The Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We've been on the same page, the same level this entire podcast.
I'm feeling it.
Nothing was pre-planned. We've
Lots
just been
of
on
bets.
absolutely rolling them out right now. So I love this. I love we're on the same page, and we're looking at, we're staying focused, and we're kind of looking at the situations from the same angle.
Yes, sir.
Put your money down. Pencil it in, lock it in, Flip, and my lock of the night, Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Put your money down. Get as much money as you can for the playoffs, because there's going to be some juicy bets coming out. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice, if we aren't cutting it for you, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. So if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. As we said the last week, playoffs right around the corner. We're coming out with a lot of content. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.